Welcome to Biocomputational Max. I think it's necessary to discuss what's going on in the world. Many brilliant analysts have wondered about the self-defeating tactics of the Western leaders. Here, a saying comes to mind: those whom the gods would destroy, they first make insane. I believe a major driving force behind this insanity can be ascribed to what Margaret Thatcher has described as the problem of socialism, which is that eventually it always runs out of other people's money. Now, these precedents, I think, are these historical precedents are important to understand current situations. So we can look at history of Ukraine and Gaza to analyze these, but Trump 2.0 appears unprecedented. So recently, I realized there is in fact a useful precedent, and that's Gorbachev's Perestroika. It was brought about by an economic bankruptcy, which was a result of a long-standing moral bankruptcy. It was characterized by a desire for change on both economic and moral grounds, and the execution involved many changes at the same time, kind of frenetic activity, making it difficult to predict system response, resulting in irreversible evolution and unintended consequences. Now, Trump's second term is also bringing massive changes. Some of them are apparent, like his fight for traditional values, defending the woke culture, enforcing the rule of law by deporting the immigrants. Of course, peace is more difficult to bring about, and that was one of his two major promises that separated him from the previous administration, which was filled with warmongers and people disinterested in US public interest. In that sense, they are similar to President of France, Emmanuel Macron, who declared an end of abundance to his citizens 2 years ago.
What we are living through is a time of great upheaval. Firstly, because we are witnessing, and not just since this summer, but over the past few years, the end of what we might have seen as abundance. And for those who enjoyed it, it is also the end of a carefree time. Our freedom, the liberty to which we have grown accustomed to in our lives, has a price, and sometimes when we have to defend it, we have to make certain sacrifices as we fight to defend it.
So there are a lot of these challenges and strange approaches going about, and we need to be able to discuss this, and I'm doing this with love. And here I want to share an analogy, and forgive me if it sounds pedantic. It's by an elementary school teacher who told us that I can love you and fail you at the same time. American public is led, or misled, perhaps I should say, by mass media, and we're often not focusing on what's important. While there was so much focus on the political spat between Trump and Musk, Russia was absorbing attacks on its nuclear triad in Ukraine and suffering what it considered terrorist attacks, which may cause it to upgrade their military operation. And Israel was preparing an attack on Iran. Today was supposed to be a day of negotiations, but Iran obviously has rejected it, as they have rejected IAEA. So Trump's agenda of peace and prosperity is facing difficulties. There are both internal and internal problems, and it all comes down to lack of money. As I've previously said about the Perestroika, that bankruptcy involved both financial and moral emphases, and the desire to rebuild the country, which is what Perestroika really means. And that's what Trump is doing. So here I sympathize with his goals, and I want to say that this comes from caring. But also, I have some experience in the matter, so I need to perhaps share a little joke about the efficiency that this current situation reminds me of, specifically why the Soviet cow is more efficient than the capitalist cow. It's because it's fed less and milked more. And that's our plan apparently for the foreigners, to tax them more and to encourage them to retain the money within the United States in investments. Now, that seems to be difficult with the fees and tariffs that are being imposed together with these capital controls. Now, as part of the big beautiful bill, which caused the spat with Musk and Trump, we are increasing the spending. Specifically, Musk called the bill a massive, outrageous, pork-filled, and disgusting abomination. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that it would add 2.4 trillion of debt. Now, Biden's BBB only cost 2.2 trillion. Of course, I'm referring to the Build Back Better Act. Not surprisingly, Caroline Leavitt was focused on the savings. She's the White House press secretary, and she stated, and I quote, "The MAGA policies in this bill, like the largest tax cuts in history, massive border security funding, and 1.6 trillion fiscal savings, are the reasons Republicans currently have the majority in Congress right now." Of course, the bill comes with a $5 trillion increase in US debt. So no wonder Musk was objecting to it, because this dwarfs the savings he generated in the Doge department. And this situation kind of looks like the GOP is taking its turn at the fiscal trough of the US more than it wants to hang on to congressional control after the midterm elections. But coming back to the ongoing and expanding military conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, which again may already be spilling into World War III, it is important for us to dose them with water, not gasoline, resulting in win-win-win outcomes where we generate more trade and prosperity and moral goodwill by helping the warring parties to negotiate a compromise and lasting peace. Now, Trump predicted that he could achieve peace very quickly in both Gaza and Ukraine. And of course, the situations are more complex, but one can also clearly point out to the actions we take not being helpful. And without peace, prosperity is hard. The wars, as I said, show little sign of abatement. In fact, one could argue that this amazing expansion to Iran is actually a consequence of the war in Gaza. And we are already being defeated in Ukraine. Now, a country can only take so many defeats, as history shows. For example, Russian Empire was enormous and yet fell in 1917 to a revolution after two military defeats by the Japanese in 1905 and the Germans in the First World War. Now, in addition to the defeat in the Ukraine, we've walked out of our commitment in Afghanistan. Regarding global trade, so far Trump appears to be rejecting massive secondary sanctions that would alienate China and Russia by slapping $500 tariffs on them for buying Russian oil. So we don't want to alienate global South. Also, these capital controls that are inherent in the Big Beautiful Bill, Propositions 899 and 891, would penalize individuals and corporations for investing in the US, for being foreigners. Our country already has systemically high production costs, and this would add burdens to foreign businesses for investing. How is this going to help to shift manufacturing to the US? How is this going to help increase our prosperity? Is taxation, that's in fact what tariffs are, no matter who bears it, conducive to prosperity and international trade, the lifeblood of this country? and our wealth. Capital controls also have the history of backfiring. Now, with respect to reviving manufacturing, it's a long process that would require changes in education and skill training. It's hardly something that can be accomplished within a single 4-year term. Nor is it clear that it is the most advantageous area for us to invest in. For example, China has captured nearly 30% of global manufacturing. India, which is now the most populous country, sees that example and yet is still betting largely on services. OPEC and Russia, of course, still continue to derive a lot of their revenue from oil and gas, although they're trying to diversify. We have all of these industries, and we have healthcare, which can produce marvelous revenue to rival those from oil and trade, which amount to $2 trillion for oil and $900 billion for gas. In fact, global healthcare spending amounts to about 15 trillion, and in the US is about 5 trillion. My calculations suggest that we could generate additional revenue, 10% of US spending and 15% of global healthcare spending, or $500 million in US and $1 trillion globally, by investing in healthcare. This would create ground up prosperity, and also in support peace. Now, we've already voted for significant changes with Trump 2.0, and he is delivering massive changes, but there's also much continuity, from foreign wars to debt increases. Now, my point here is that peace and prosperity can be encouraged from the ground up, perhaps more efficiently from the top down. And private sector, which is closest to the American people, can not only deliver value, but also deliver prosperity globally. We can join together to do well by doing good.